So our next speaker is Ali Yerevani. Ali is a political editor of the Fire This Time newspaper and the Battle of Ideas Press in Canada. He's been a social justice activist since 1971, while in high school in Iran during the despotic regime of Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi. He was a participant in the 1979 revolution, and since 1984, he has been organizing social justice causes in Europe, the US, and Canada. In Europe, he was the organizer of the Nelson Mandela Defense Campaign. In Canada, he's been a founder of Mobilization Against War and Occupation, Free the Cuban Five Committee Vancouver, the Palestine Solidarity Group, the Vancouver Communities of Solidarity with Cuba, the Iranian Community Against War, the Battle of Ideas Press, the Fire This Time Movement for Social Justice, and the Vancouver Center for Che Guevara conference, and many other social justice organizations. And he's going to speak for about 15 minutes. So Ali, please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It is 6:30 a.m. here in Vancouver, Canada, and I wish a good afternoon and good evening to everyone else. Greetings and solidarity with the heroic Iranian people who for 43 years have tirelessly resisted the fought back against imperialist bullying and savage aggression, especially by the United States. Thank you very much, Radhika, again, for the introduction. And indeed, thank you, Arnold, and the International Manifesto Group for providing this extraordinary platform to talk about 33 years of Islamic Revolution in Iran. In addition, it is a great pleasure and honor to be here today in this event with all distinguished speakers. I also would like to ask the participants to bear with me because I'm still recovering from Corona Omicron, so I prefer to read my talk. Sometimes I explain, but mainly I talk, which will read, which will help me to focus on issues. First, I would like to congratulate Mohammed Yerevani for a clean and remarkable translation of Arnold August's book. Mohammed made this book easy to read for Farsi readers and has done an excellent translation from the first page to the last page of the English version. I would like to express my gratitude to Ali Abdul Talibi that this book could be printed. Arnold August's book, Cuba-US Relationship, or in Farsi, Imperialism و Democracy در Cuba, is written specifically on US-Cuba relations. However, it is very valuable for Iranian readers, especially because of the similarities which exist in the United States' unjust and oppressive approach to both Cuba and Iran. Cuba and Iran, while one being an Islamic government and the other being a socialist government, have both been punished for exercising their right to self-determination, developing the way they see fit to build their respective countries. Both countries have been under severe sanctions and blockades, in the case of Cuba for more than 60 years, and in the case of Iran for more than 40 years. Yet, both countries have continued resisting and fighting back for their rights, and not only to survive, but Cuba and Iran have successfully and amazingly advanced and progressed in all aspects of technology, industrialization, medical sciences, art, sports, military education, and all other social and economic development. No wonder both countries have deeply influenced their respective regions and have immensely impacted politics in Latin America, the Middle East, Asia, and Africa. Today, both Cuba and Iran are the leading forces of resistance against US meddling and domination. So much so that there is no so much so that there is no political change or motion in Latin America without Cuba as leading factor. And similarly, there is no political movement in the entire Middle East and Africa and most parts of Asia without Iran as the leading factor. Both countries have become the bastion of the anti-imperialist struggle for oppressed nations. Therefore, Farsi readers of this book will find a lot of parallel and a lot to learn from imperialism and democracy در Cuba. I have the Farsi version. I don't know if you can see it. It is very nice, and also the English version. Let me share a memory, a significant memory with you. You might find it interesting. Exactly, I'm saying exactly, and I'm not exaggerating. Precisely 43 years ago today, at this time, between 6 to 8 a.m., after the uprising and heavy fighting the night before, I was standing with two of my friends in the middle of the compound of the Iranian secret police called Savak, the Shah of Iran, vicious and ruthless secret police in a city in north of Iran. Their compound had fallen. The night before, hundreds of newly armed people had fought back and brought down the huge secret police compound. By 6 a.m., the compound surrendered. There I was, standing in the middle of the compound in these moments. Smoke everywhere, two secret police hung off the lance posts, another dead secret police body killed with many bullets on the ground, and hundreds of people were roaming around the compound to uncover their torture chambers, torture devices, and weapons. Some were taking pictures to document the historic moment. At that very moment, I was happy that the secret police were gone. As the military base on other side of the city collapsed too, I happily understood that the Shah of Iran was gone for good. However, I honestly had no idea what would happen 2 or 5 or 43 years later. And here I am today with extraordinary memories, stories of many struggles from an extraordinary event in history. February 11 and 12 marked the triumph of the 1979 Iranian Revolution. 2 days that shook the world. 2 days that changed the world. Like millions of Iranians, young and old, I was honored to participate in finishing the overdue task of overthrowing the imperialist puppet regime of monarch Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi and cutting imperialist powers from Iran. As a young activist, I observed a tremendous exhibition of discontent, power, and will of millions of heroic Iranian people. The Iranian Revolution was deeply rooted in the history of the Iranian people's struggle for freedom and democracy. The February 1979 revolution, known now as Islamic Revolution, stems from Iran's first anti-colonial movement in 1891 against unjust colonial tobacco contract imposed on Iran by Britain. The tobacco movement was the vanguard of oppressed people anti-colonial movement throughout Asia and Africa. From 1891, this fundamental desire for change never rested, continuing through 1905, 1911 revolution, constitutional revolution, the 1920s, 1930s, 1945 to 1953, and finally 1979. For almost a century, the Iranian people were consistently on the march for change. No matter what one calls it, the Iranian Revolution or the Iranian Islamic Revolution, the 1979 revolution was one of the most significant mass popular movement in modern times, demonstrating clear antagonistic classes in motion. Both sides were fighting to prevail by any means necessary on the respective terms. The 1979 Islamic Revolution in Iran was a classic revolution, resembling the Great Russian Revolution of 1917 in terms of dynamics of the battle between revolution and counter-revolution of the social classes. After 14 months of unrest and mass protest, both sides finally reached exhaustion. It became clear that one had to remove the other. The mass revolutionary struggle for eliminating the old order led to the mass popular armed insurrection of millions of Iranians against the old, corrupt, isolated, and broken monarchist regime. By the dawn of February 12, 1979, today, in these hours, the will of the mass majority of Iranian people prevailed. History took a deep breath of relief. It is fair to say that every honest person who participated and had the honor and privilege to intervene in this gigantic shakeup of history in Iran would say with utmost certainty and confidence that it was unequivocally the right things to do, regardless of difficulties, tremendous pressures, danger, violence, physical harm, and death. Bringing down the monarch was a historical task that was long, long overdue. The Iranian Revolution changed the whole political equation in the Middle East and North Africa. It has changed for foreseeable future the balance and relationship of social and political forces, not only in the immediate region, the Middle East, but the whole Africa, Asia, the rest of the world. The Iranian Revolution, powerful message for independence and self-determination, is still resonating, influencing, motivating, and inspiring millions in the Middle East and North Africa today. It is no wonder that Iran has been under consistent attack by US imperialism to undermine the fundamental achievement of Iranian Revolution of 1979. It means independence and the self-determination. With all its mighty army and savagery, US imperialism is currently in its lowest capacity to dominate oppressed nations. Without any doubt, the United States imperialism is declining. We see this, the humiliating defeat of US in Afghanistan and Iraq. From the occupation of Afghanistan in 2001 to the occupation of Iraq in 2003, which started a new era of war and occupation, to revolutionary uprising in the Middle East and North Africa in 2011, and further ongoing heroic resistance by Yemenis, Syrians, and Palestinians in the face of imperialist aggression, we see the proof of the continuing spirit of the Iranian Revolution and its aftershocks for fundamental change. What is known now as the Islamic Revolution of Iran, its revolutionary dynamics and its resistance to imperialism have put working and oppressed people in the Middle East, North Africa, and around the world in a better position to win the struggle against imperialist suppression and domination, to achieve national independence and self-determination. All of this with continued hope to strike forward toward a better world. Today, defending Cuba and Iran against the brutal United States and its imperialist allies is a fundamental task of every true progressive and human-loving person and organization. Needless to say, feeling and intentions are essential for humanity, but cannot change the situation. In unity and consistency, we need to build a solid and effective anti-war, anti-occupation, anti-sanctions movement worldwide. In that, we will win. Thank you very much.